discovered a hidden letter from my late grandfather, revealing a family secret that changed everything. Now, I must confront the truth and decide whom to trust. As a 42-year-old man, I've suddenly found myself in the middle of intense family drama that's shaken my faith in trust and loyalty within my family. To give you a bit of background, he has operated a small mechanic workshop for his entire career. Ever since I was a kid, I've been fascinated by my dad's work and would always lend a hand in his workshop on weekends. This interest led me to pursue a degree in automobile engineering so I could officially join my dad in his business. Since the age of 23, I've been working alongside my dad as a mechanic, gradually taking on more responsibilities and eventually taking over the management of his workshop. When I first joined the workshop, my dad had just 2 part-time mechanics in a single car. Leveraging my education and experience, I implemented various new strategies, leading to significant growth. Over the last decade, we've expanded to over 35 employees and a fleet of 15 cars. In terms of financial growth, we've skyrocketed from an annual revenue of $250,000 to nearly $7 million this financial year. My dad's role has primarily remained in the workshop while I've taken on a more office-centric managerial position. Over the last decade, I've poured my heart and soul into transforming our family business, building it from scratch. The countless hours of hard work, the challenges I've faced, and the sacrifices I've made weren't just for my personal gain. They were driven by the belief that one day I would inherit and continue to nurture this business. It became more than just a job to me. It was my passion, my responsibility. I've navigated through tough times, braved through various storms, and rejoiced in our successes, all with a steadfast dedication. My older brother Michael, who's 48, took a different path in life. He went to university and then carved out a career as an accountant in the city. Unlike me, he never showed any interest in our dad's mechanic business. In fact, growing up, he had a strong disdain for it. He was embarrassed that our dad was a mechanic and would often refuse to even acknowledge it in front of our friends. When I was helping out our dad in the workshop, Michael would get angry with me, insisting that such work was beneath us. Despite my growing passion for automobiles and my decision to pursue a degree in that field, Michael consistently tried to discourage me. He would tell me that my degree in automobile engineering was a dead end and that I should aim for a more prestigious career. Interestingly, despite his clear embarrassment over our dad's profession, my dad always saw Michael as his golden child. This favoritism remained apparent, even though Michael had little to no interest in the family business and the work our father did. There was a time when things weren't like this. My dad used to show equal affection to both of us. However, everything changed when Michael was 15. He contracted pneumonia and became bedridden, causing a great deal of worry for our family. The doctors expressed serious concerns about his health, even warning us that he might be at risk of dying. It was an incredibly difficult period for all of us. I vividly recall the fear and anxiety I felt about the possibility of losing Michael during his entire hospital stay. It was a defining moment that seemed to shift the dynamics in our family. Michael always wanted our dad above anyone else. He used to ask for our dad all the time. My dad spent countless nights in the hospital, which meant they bonded a lot eventually. Michael recovered, and things went back to normal. Yet my dad continued to favor Michael over the years. Even when Michael would grow up to hate our dad's profession, Dad didn't mind and favored him regardless. As I got older, I obviously noticed this favoritism and was understandably hurt that our father always favored Michael. For example, once my school had an awards ceremony where I was going to be presented an award, I was extremely proud that I won the award and told my parents about it. My mother hugged me while my dad smiled warmly, congratulating me. I informed my parents that the school had invited them to attend our awards ceremony. I was aware that my mother might not be able to make it given her demanding job with long night shifts at the hospital, which left her exhausted during the day. So, with a sense of expectation, I turned to my dad, hoping he would confirm his attendance. He looked back at me with a hint of hesitation, his eyes shifting towards my mother. She then turned to him, asking if he could make it to the ceremony to be there for me. My dad then cleared his throat and said that he had plans to play basketball with Michael. My mother looked at him angrily and told him that playing basketball with Michael wasn't important, and he could take Michael with him to attend my awards ceremony instead. My dad nodded begrudgingly in agreement. The night before the event, my mother reminded my dad during dinner to make sure he showed up at my awards ceremony. Michael, who was sitting at the dinner table, asked my dad if he was canceling on him for that basketball practice. My dad explained to him that they could always play basketball the next week. Michael immediately started expressing his discontentment, saying how he was looking forward to having father-son time and didn't want to waste his time for my ceremony. My mom fired back at him, scolding my big brother for lacking empathy and support, considering I had just clinched an award. She even went as far as demanding that our dad pull himself together for once and be there for me. On the big day, I had to desperately remind my dad once more as I headed to school, hoping he wouldn't let me down again. He told me not to worry about it, and that he would be there during my awards ceremony. I looked around for my dad everywhere, but I couldn't find him. My name was eventually called up, and I had to go up to the stage to collect my award. I remember receiving my award from the principal while my schoolmates cheered, and I was fervently looking for my dad's face in the crowd. He never showed up. I sent my mother a message saying that my dad never showed up. She immediately called me concerned, asking me if I was sure that my dad didn't show up, and I told her how he wasn't anywhere to be found, and maybe he must have forgotten. My mother told me that was impossible as she had put 5 alarms on his phone, and she couldn't see his car parked in front of our house, which meant he was definitely out at this point. We were gripped with anxiety, fearing that something dreadful might have occurred. Upon returning home from school, I cautiously pushed the door open and was met with the sight of my mom and dad engaged in a furious and explosive confrontation. Their voices were raised to a deafening pitch, and the atmosphere was so tense that you could practically cut it with a knife. The fiery argument between my parents reverberated through the entire hallway, leaving me in shock and disbelief. My mother, her face contorted with anger, stood near the entrance while my dad, looking both guilty and defensive, was attempting to justify his actions. Feeling a mixture of confusion and concern, I cautiously stepped into our living room. I asked my dad curiously if he was okay, my worry palpable, as I mentioned that he never showed up at my school for the awards ceremony. The room fell silent for the moment while my dad tried to avoid eye contact and mumbled an apology. Something about losing track of time and unforeseen circumstances. I could sense that his explanation wasn't adding up. But before I could press further, my mother unleashed a torrent of frustration and disappointment. "Why did you show up, John?" she demanded, her voice sharp and accusatory. "Tell me the truth. Our son won an award, and you promised him you would be there. What could be more important than that?" Dad shifted uncomfortably, clearly aware that he was in the hot seat before he could respond. Michael entered the room with an air of nonchalance, eating an ice cream. My mother turned her ire towards Michael, her eyes narrowing in disbelief and anger. "Michael, what on earth were you and your dad thinking? Where were you guys when your brother needed you the most on his big day?" Michael responded with an indifferent shrug, casually mentioning that he had a sudden craving for ice cream and had convinced our dad to take him to the ice cream shop first. As if that weren't bad enough, they then proceeded to my school, only to find out that they had missed the entire awards ceremony. And so they simply drove back home, leaving me high and dry. My mother's face turned from anger to incredulity as she processed this absurd excuse. "You skipped your brother's awards ceremony for ice cream," she exclaimed, her voice rising incredulously. "You and your father missed his big moment because you wanted ice cream." Amidst the escalating tension, my dad, instead of apologizing and admitting his mistake, tried to defend Michael and justify his actions, stammering out an explanation that only added fuel to the fire. "Look, it's not a big deal," he began, attempting to downplay the significance of my awards ceremony. "It's just an awards ceremony, and there will be more in the future. Michael wanted an ice cream, and I thought we could just grab a quick one. I didn't think it was such a big deal." His words hit me like a punch to the gut. I couldn't wrap my head around it. The man I had counted on, my own father, was downplaying the importance of my accomplishment. The way he casually dismissed the moment I had been eagerly anticipating, his words lingering in the air, left me utterly speechless. What had begun as sheer disbelief now evolved into a powerful blend of anger and sorrow, a potent cocktail of frustration and sadness coursing through me. A lump formed in my throat, and I felt the sting of unshed tears. My achievement, the recognition for my hard work and dedication, was being swept aside as inconsequential. But that moment, I realized that it wasn't just about missing the ceremony. It was about the lack of understanding, the absence of support, and the crushing feeling that my accomplishments were not valued by those I held closest. I gazed at my dad, the very person I had counted on for support, my eyes reflecting a turbulent mix of disbelief and betrayal. The deep disappointment that had taken hold of my heart was vividly mirrored in my expression. Meanwhile, my mother did not hold back, voicing her own disappointment and berating them both for choosing an impulsive ice cream craving over a monumental achievement in my life. Their heated argument raged on, adding to the chaos of the moment. I continued to feel a sense of betrayal and hurt, feeling a heavy weight on my chest and a lump in my throat. I mustered a weak smile and told my dad, "It's okay, Dad. Don't worry about it." The words tasted bitter on my tongue, forced out to mask the deep emotions swirling within me. I didn't want to escalate the argument or add more strain to the already tense atmosphere. As I made my way back to my room, the facade I had carefully crafted for my dad disintegrated. With the door firmly shut behind me, I finally let go. Tears that I had struggled to hold back in front of my parents now flowed freely down my face. The sheer weight of disappointment, the sting of betrayal, and the deep sense of being let down all crashed over me like a tidal wave, leaving me utterly overwhelmed. My mom, seeing me upset, came into my room to comfort me. She sat beside me, putting her arm around my shoulder. She didn't say much, just let me cry and vent my feelings. Her presence was reassuring, and I felt a bit better knowing she was there for me. After a while, she spoke gently. "I know it hurts, sweetheart. Your dad messed up, and I'm sorry you had to go through this. Sometimes people make mistakes, but it doesn't take away from your achievement. You worked hard for that award, and nothing can change that." Her words were like a little lighter. She stayed with me until I calmed down, assuring me that despite the disappointment, I was still valued and loved. There have been countless times when my dad's blatant favoritism towards Michael over me has been painfully evident. My mother has confronted him about this issue on numerous occasions. Each time, my dad appears to genuinely listen and makes an effort to be more present in my life. But it's always short-lived, and he ultimately reverts to being super dad to Michael. It's a recurring pattern that I've observed throughout my entire life. Despite these moments of partiality, I have always tried hard to win my dad's approval. I have a genuine interest in his work, and in particular developed a deep love for cars, partly because it seemed like something he valued, even though it often felt like a one-sided effort. I kept hoping that my efforts would eventually make a difference and earn me the recognition and approval I crave from my dad. Last year, my dad filed for divorce with my mother, citing irreconcilable differences, marking the beginning of a challenging chapter in our family's life. I knew for a few years that the arguments between my mother and my dad had become worse and worse, but I'd never imagined that they would be divorcing. It was a difficult time for us as a family. Over the past few months, my dad has been involved with several younger women. About 5 months ago, he summoned me and Michael for what he claimed was an important dinner. As we sat down at the table, the air in the room grew heavy with tension, and a knot formed in my stomach as I braced myself for the unexpected news my dad was about to deliver. With a solemn expression, he finally broke the silence and began to speak. "I have something important to share with you both. Olivia and I got married." He looked at us as if expecting us to be overjoyed, or at least accepting of his decision. Michael and I exchanged stunned glances. Olivia, his latest girlfriend, was only 30 years old, just a few years younger than me. The shock on our faces must have been evident. But my dad continued, seemingly oblivious to our surprise. He went on to explain how he had found love again, and how Olivia brought joy and excitement into his life. I couldn't believe that my dad had decided to get married without even inviting us to his wedding or discussing it with us. My dad didn't just stop with that announcement. and went on to say how proud he was of the business he had created and grown over the years. He said how he's been thinking lately about the succession plan of his business. I waited with bated breath for him to share his plans. My dad turned to look at me and told me that he had thought long and hard about this, and decided that since I wasn't married yet and had no children of my own, I should forget about inheriting the family business from him. I stared at him, utterly perplexed, as he continued to reveal his decision to pass the business to Michael. Waves of shock and disbelief crashed over me, and I struggled to come to terms with the immense sense of betrayal that had suddenly consumed me. It felt like a devastating blow to the core, causing the trust one had in my father to disintegrate before my eyes. A storm of anger and betrayal surged within me as my dad dropped this bombshell. My entire world, built over a decade of hard work and dedication, was crumbling before my eyes. I stared at him, my jaw tight, unable to comprehend the magnitude of his decision. Why? I finally managed to utter the words seething with a mix of anger and hurt. I dedicated my life to this business. I built it with you. How can you just hand it over to Michael? Dad, seemingly unfazed by the storm he had unleashed, explained his reasoning. Michael has a family, a wife, and kids. He needs the financial stability, and I believe he can take the business to new heights. His words hung in the air, and I felt the weight of his favoritism crashing down on me once again. I struggled to keep my composure, my hands clenched into fists. This isn't fair. I've given everything to this business. I've worked alongside you and dedicated my time and energy, and now you're just going to cast me aside because Michael has a family? What about my future? My dreams? His response was callous. You can continue to remain in your position and work under Michael, but the business goes to your brother. That's my final decision. Despite the surge of anger coursing through me, I managed to restrain my retort. I turned towards Michael, seeking even a glimmer of support or empathy. To my dismay, he remained silent, avoiding eye contact. The disappointment I experienced now extended beyond my father. It enveloped my brother, who had opted not to stand by my side. In that pivotal moment, I felt the crushing weight of a lifetime of favoritism pressing down on me. It wasn't just about the business. It was a culmination of years of feeling second best. The sacrifice I made, the dedication I showed, all dismissed with a casual wave. Resigned. I muttered a defeated, "Fine, Dad, if that's what you want." I turned away, the bitter taste of betrayal lingering in the air. I decided to walk out of his house without fighting with him any further. I couldn't shake the feeling of abandonment, the realization that my dad continued to favor his golden child, despite how hard I had worked over him. Later, in the solitude of my home, the weight of the injustice pressed down on me. The business I considered my legacy, my life's work, was slipping through my fingers. Anguish welled up, and the room blurred as tears blurred my vision. I had never experienced such profound isolation and rejection. Feeling utterly abandoned, I made the decision to reach out to my mom, desperately hoping she would comprehend the depth of my turmoil. As I recounted the entire ordeal, from my dad's blatant favoritism towards Michael, to him taking away the family business from me, and the overwhelming sense of being adrift, my mother listened with a mix of surprise and dismay. I never imagined he would go this far. My mother finally broke her silence, her voice tinged with sadness. To treat Michael so much better and give him the business completely instead of dividing the business equally between the both of you is completely unfair. Her words matched exactly how I felt, as I didn't mind sharing the business with Michael, but my dad had unfairly given it to him completely. Despite how hard I had worked over the years, as we kept talking, my mom's voice went from surprised to determined. She told me firmly to try not to see this as the end, but as a chance for something new. You've done amazing things, and you don't need his approval. Why don't you start your own business? You know, a lot of clients would rather work with you than Michael, she said. Through her words, a flicker of determination ignited within me. If my dad thought he could strip away everything I had worked for, he was mistaken. The pain of betrayal fueled a silent vow. I would forge my own path and build something new from the ashes of what was taken from me in the last 10 years. I've saved more than enough money for me to start my own business the next day, as the reality of the situation settled in. I took matters into my own hands and embarked on a course of action. I reached out to a significant portion of our client base, particularly those I had personally brought on board over the years. These were the clients with whom I had fostered strong relationships and earned their trust. I candidly disclosed my father's intentions of handing over the entire business to my older brother and explained my decision to launch my own company as a result. The clients were as shocked as me, but surprisingly, the overall response was overwhelmingly positive. These were people who had come to admire my dedication, work ethic, and the values that I brought to the table. They assured me that they were willing to follow me to continue our successful partnership under a new banner. The news of my departure from the family business spread throughout the industry, and some of my dad's workers even approached me, voicing their support that they wanted to work for me. It was like people were starting to understand that after my dad left the business under Michael's care, this would be a sinking ship. I handed him my resignation letter to my dad, and he was shocked. He scolded me that I should not ditch the company at such a crucial period, but I scoffed at his response and left as the majority of the client base shifted allegiance. The once prosperous family business started to disintegrate, with my dad unwittingly caught in the chaos of the fallout from his grand scheme. Helplessly, he watched as his well-intentioned plan spectacularly backfired. In the following months, my new venture blossomed. The unwavering support from loyal clients, combined with my expertise, not only ensured my survival, but also propelled me to thrive. My father's betrayal served as the catalyst for my rebirth, making me emerge from the ashes as someone stronger and more resilient than ever before. The business I have built now, independent and thriving, is a testament to my tenacity. I can finally revel in the last laugh, knowing that my hard work, dedication, and resilience have prevailed against all odds. Meanwhile, I have learned from my mother that Michael has no idea how to manage the business and is struggling to retain the remaining clients. I guess word of my success must have reached my dad, because he sent me a long message yesterday saying I was an asshole for not helping my brother and keeping the family business alive, and how I had turned my back on family. He wrote how he was facing money issues and Olivia, his new wife, threatened to divorce him because he was unable to fund her lifestyle anymore. He concluded his message by urging me to do what he perceived as the right thing, returning to the family business and retrieving all the clients I had acquired in a bid to salvage our struggling family enterprise. Update 1. I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to everyone who has provided valuable advice and offered reassurance regarding my predicament. To clear up any misconceptions, I am still baffled as to why my dad thought it was a sensible idea for Michael to assume control of the business when we all knew he had absolutely no knowledge about the inner workings of our family enterprise. Michael agreed to my father's wishes because he knew how well our business was doing and thought this would be an easy job, with me taking most of the responsibility. He had expressed previously to us that he was unhappy at his job. Hence, I am assuming that he thought I would do most of the hard work for him, while he and his family would be able to enjoy the CEO title. As for those wondering why I'm not married yet, it's simply because I've always been a bit of a loner all my life, dedicated to my work. While I do have a girlfriend for the past 1.5 years whom I love dearly, and we have discussed marriage as a future goal, we both agree that we want to take some time to grow as individuals before taking the next step. Irrespective of my marital status, I never held the expectation that my dad would hand over the entire business to me. I would have been perfectly content with a 70-30 split, or even a 50-50 split with Michael, which would have been equitable, especially if I didn't have any children in the future. It was my intention that my portion of the company would eventually pass down to Michael's children, ensuring a family legacy. Anyway, there was no reason for my dad to be so mean and give the entire business to Michael. I did spend 10 years in this business, and I deserve to have a share in it. I also never forced any of the clients to choose me over my dad's business. They opted to work with me because I was always the one who would go the extra mile, ensuring their satisfaction and building lasting relationships. I never wanted Michael to fail or our family business to be destroyed. The business failed because Michael still didn't know the ins and outs of the business, and my dad was too busy with Olivia to focus on his clients. My dad must have assumed that I would eventually give up my business and come running back to him, asking for his forgiveness when I inevitably fail. Due to my relentless dedication and effort, I not only stand resolute, but continue to prosper. It's truly disheartening to witness the gradual decline of a business I played a significant role in building. However, it's crucial to recognize that this outcome is a direct result of their own decisions and not something I ever intended. I intend to have a candid conversation with my dad next week when I have some free time to address these pressing issues. Update 2. I finally had the long-awaited conversation with my dad. He called me over for dinner last weekend. Expecting an apology, I went to his place. I entered his place, and to my shock, saw Michael sitting there waiting for me. The atmosphere was tense, but I hoped they had called me here for a resolution. My dad took a deep breath, exchanging a glance with Michael before dropping the bombshell. He started by saying how he was sad over what had happened between us, and he regrets that our family business was now in pieces. I raised an eyebrow, bracing myself for what was to come, expecting him to say that he had changed his mind. Instead, my dad started pressuring me to return to the family business as soon as possible, claiming he would forgive and forget if I did come back. Michael joined the conversation, pinning the blame on me for the business's decline, his own challenges, and even labeling me as selfish for departing and leaving him to handle the business alone. I was left in disbelief by his accusations. "Dad, you chose to entrust the entire business to Michael without considering my future at all. How can you lay this at my feet?" I shot back, my frustration bubbling to the surface. Michael scoffed, adding, "The real issue is that you took the majority of the clients with you when you departed. That's the root of the problem. They followed me because of the relationships I built, not because I forced them. You were welcome to try to get them back. If you are so good with retaining clients, your remaining clients would have not left the business either," I argued, feeling the weight of their accusations. My dad sighed. "Look, I don't want to see the family business fall apart. It's my source of income, and it's how I sustain my lifestyle. Olivia has also left me because of all of this. I want to enjoy my retired life in peace instead of trying to resolve this ongoing family drama. So stop being so selfish and just come back and work for your brother." The room seemed to shrink, and the atmosphere grew oppressively heavy. It dawned on me that this was far from the apology or resolution I had hoped for. Instead, it felt like an attempt to coerce me back into a situation I had fought hard to break free from. Stunned and wounded, I rose to my feet, my anger simmering. "I'm finished with this conversation," I declared with a fiery glare at my dad. "I'll gladly watch your business go down the drain." And with that, I walked away from the toxic exchange. Ever since this conversation, I've been bombarded with texts and calls from both Michael and Dad. They've been calling me names and blaming me for everything. It's emotionally traumatizing to see how my own family wants to take advantage of my hard work, and I have blocked them for now. Update 3. It's been 6 months since my last update. I'm happy to report that my business is flourishing, and I'm also planning on taking the next step with my girlfriend by proposing to her soon. She's definitely the one for me, and I can't wait to be blissfully married to her. On a less positive note, my dad faced challenges as Michael drove his business into the ground. In the end, my dad had to sell off the entire business to another company. Regrettably, he didn't reap significant benefits from the sale, and whatever he did acquire was claimed by Olivia during their divorce. I have intentionally distanced myself from both of them, having blocked their communication. I've learned about these developments through occasional conversations with family friends. Surprisingly, my relationship with my mother has grown stronger over the months, contrary to what one might expect. She treats both me and Michael equally, and has been a source of support and understanding in this tumultuous time. She understands my actions and is supportive of my new business. She has also informed me that Michael is planning to get back into accounting since the business has failed. Despite the challenges within my family, I'm grateful for the joy and stability in my own life. The support from my girlfriend and the strengthened bond with my mother are invaluable sources of strength. Focused on the positive aspects, I remain determined to succeed in my business endeavors. I'm optimistic about the path ahead and committed to turning challenges into opportunities for growth and success.